Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're cracking open the playbook used by some really elite engineering leaders and technical executives.
Yeah, the people who are paid to perform when failure just isn't an option.
Exactly. We're looking at a high-stakes training module. It's designed specifically to build, well, composure under chaos.
Hmm.
Our mission is pretty simple. We want to extract the practical tools that let these leaders navigate, a critical bug, a screaming customer, or an internal crisis without losing their clarity.
Or, and I think this is the key thing, without losing their team in the process.
Right.
And we should just jump right into the critical finding here. The biggest threat in any crisis is almost never the technical problem.
It's not the bug.
No, it's how the leader processes and projects their own stress. The manager's emotional state, it's like this massive broadcast antenna. The second they wobble, the entire team picks up that signal and just mirrors it.
So we're not just talking about like internal zen or keeping a stiff upper lip. This is about stabilizing the entire operation using your own nervous system.
Precisely. We're diving into the process of building what the material calls emotional containment. This is really the core skill that separates managers who just react and create more anxiety from those who become these trusted, stabilizing forces under pressure.
If you can't contain your state, you can't lead.
You can't lead the incident, period.
Okay, so let's start with the diagnosis then. Managers, they often think they're doing a pretty good job of masking their stress. They walk away, they try to hold it in.
Right, they think they've got a good poker face.
Yeah, but the source material is really clear that stress, it leaks out. It leaks in all these subtle, damaging ways. So what are the specific signs we should be looking for?
The signs are subtle, but a team that's under pressure, they see them immediately. It shows up in like short clip messages in Slack. That brevity, it implies frustration or this urgency that's way beyond what the words are actually saying.
Right.
We see managers rushing meetings, skipping crucial context.
Or the opposite, right? The over-explaining.
Oh, absolutely. The paradoxical over-explaining of technical details in this like fast, anxious monologue, it's a way for them to soothe their own fear.
I see that all the time. It's frustration disguised as this kind of hyperspeed urgency.
Exactly. And the most immediate giveaway is always the tone of voice. Even if an email is neutral, the tension in the voice on a call or just the sudden jump in the speed of their speech, it all signals instability.
So the core insight here is that the team, they aren't actually responding to the rational words. They're responding to their manager's nervous system.
That's the one. That concept's leadership neurobiology is everything.
So why are we so wired to do that? To prioritize their internal state over what they're actually telling us to do?
Because fundamentally, we're emotional beings before we're rational beings. We're built for survival, and fear is incredibly contagious.
Okay.
So if the leader, who's supposed to be the most stable person in the room, enters fight or flight, their nervous system is activated and spiking.
Then the team's does too.
Instantly, through unconscious mirroring.
So it's like the moment a manager leaks any stress, they're accidentally just downgrading the cognitive capabilities of their entire team.
They are. That unconscious mirroring, which is leadership neurobiology in action, it affects clarity, it affects collaboration, decision-making, all of it. Way more than whatever technical bug they're actually dealing with. If you leak panic, you're introducing a performance-killing virus into your response team.
Let's look at a concrete example of this. The coaching transcripts, they have this anonymized story of a VP at a huge gaming company.
Yeah, this one's a classic.
Technically brilliant, highly respected, but just structurally flawed under pressure. So what were his reactive patterns? What did that look like?
Oh, his pattern was textbook. Under acute pressure, he would just start talking incredibly fast.
Okay.
And that rush meant he instantly lost all precision in his instructions. He'd pivot from giving clear action items to asking these vague, high-level, completely unhelpful questions.
I can picture that.
And this is crucial. In the span of maybe 10 minutes, he would forget critical facts or even forget instructions he had just given. It forced his teams to constantly backtrack.
And this all came to a head during a catastrophic launch crisis.
It did. A true stress test. They had servers down, the player community was in open revolt, and every senior leader was demanding immediate status updates. And the VP just collapsed.
So when he panicked,
His team felt that stability completely disappear. They started chasing old fixes because they couldn't trust his latest command. I mean, one report said they spent 3 hours on a deprecated database migration.
3 hours. Why?
Because the VP, in his rush, he completely forgot that he told them that very morning to focus only on the load balancer.
So the panic didn't just cause anxiety, it created wasted work, critical delays.
Absolutely. The team made mistakes, they started arguing, they broke trust with him, they weren't incompetent. Their leader's emotional instability degraded their entire environment. The most powerful lesson from the postmortem review was just blunt. It said, "You didn't lose the battle because the system broke. You lost because you broke."
That's a heavy takeaway.
It is. The ultimate lesson here is that presence is leadership. Stability is the foundation for everything else.
So given how critical that stability is, let's explore why engineering managers are so uniquely susceptible to this kind of overload in the first place. The material lays out 5 big structural reasons.
Right. And these 5 factors really show why the manager role is just this inherent emotional and cognitive pressure cooker. First, they sit at the intersection of chaos.
The central hub.
Exactly. They are absorbing pressure from PMs, from the C-suite, from their ICs, from customers, DevOps, QA. They are the human firewall.
And they own the outcome, but they don't own all the inputs, right?
That's the second one. They hold responsibility without full control. They're accountable for the launch, for the stable service, but they're relying on external dependencies, systems they didn't write, other teams. Third, they're carrying this tremendous invisible cognitive load. This is all the stuff like architecture risk, long-term staffing, interpersonal conflicts, all this work that isn't really measured, but it's always running in the background.
And the pressure's coming from above and below.
Yes, that's the fourth factor.
Okay.
They feel judged simultaneously by their team and their leaders. Their team is judging their ability to protect them, and their leaders are judging their ability to deliver.
That dual scrutiny has to elevate the anxiety.
Drastically. And finally, number 5, as we talked about, engineers mirror their emotional signals instantly. So they often compound the crisis by assuming the situation is way worse than it is just because their leader looks stressed.
So when all 5 of those pressures hit at once, what's actually happening inside the executive's brain? You mentioned cognitive degradation of up to 50%.
Yeah, the neuroscience explains that functional collapse. Acute stress shifts the brain into these high beta wave states. And when that happens, resources get instantly reallocated away from the prefrontal cortex. That's the part for logical planning, perspective, smart decisions.
And move toward
the ancient limbic system, which only cares about survival. Fight, flight, or freeze.
So the analytical part of the brain is effectively hijacked.
It's hijacked.
Yeah.
That 50% degradation, it's not an exaggeration, it's resource depletion. Executives in that high beta state, they lose precision, they lose perspective, their short-term memory fails, their empathy vanishes. They become fundamentally reactive.
Which leads to terrible triage decisions, ignoring their team.
All of it.
Okay, so if a manager knows they shouldn't panic, but they feel that fear building, what are the two common but ineffective reactions they default to?
The first one is what we've been talking about, leaking emotion. Visible agitation, frustrated tone, making snap decisions that just spike the team's anxiety.
Right, and the second one?
The second is suppressing emotion. They try to become a robot. They pretend they're completely fine. They get quiet. They disconnect. They mentally just shut down.
And I think suppression is often mistaken for calm, but it's actually really destructive.
Oh, it's the total opposite of containment. Suppression takes a massive amount of internal effort, which just eats up cognitive resources. It leads to fatigue and then inevitably a much bigger emotional outburst later on. Or burnout.
So what's true containment then?
True containment is totally different. It means you acknowledge and you feel the urgency, the fear, the frustration, but you refuse to let that emotion dictate your behavior. You stay grounded. You are deliberately slow, clear, and precise. You project stability, not denial.
So we've established why containment is so necessary. Let's pivot from diagnosis to active defense. The material outlines this very specific step-by-step technique, the 45-second containment protocol.
The core tool.
But let me challenge you on that right away. 45 seconds feels like an eternity when PagerDuty is screaming and a VP is demanding an answer right now. How do you possibly carve out that space?
That's the entire point. The protocol is designed to be a surgical intervention. It has to be fast, and it has to be practiced until it's just automatic. It takes 45 seconds to interrupt a pattern that would otherwise cost you hours of chaos and, frankly, reputational damage.
Okay, walk us through the 5 steps. I want to focus on the neurological purpose of each one.
Absolutely. Step
Yeah.
1, pause your mind. This is just 5 seconds. The moment the pressure hits, you silently say to yourself, not reacting yet, I need 45 seconds.
So it's an interrupt.
It's a powerful interrupt. It cuts that immediate loop between the emotional trigger and the impulsive action.
Okay, so you've created the space.
Yeah.
What's the next step? It's a bit counterintuitive.
It is. Step 2, relax your tongue. This takes 10 seconds. It sounds esoteric, I know, but it's deeply rooted in our neurobiology. A tense tongue is directly linked to an active amygdala, the fear center, because it's priming your throat for fight or flight, bracing for a snarl or a yell. By consciously relaxing your tongue and just doing a slow exhale, you instantly signal safety to your vagus nerve.
Which calms the whole system down.
It's an immediate physical anchor. I mean, I can feel my own stress dropping just thinking about that physical release.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so what's next?
Next is step 3. Identify the emotion. 10 seconds. You just silently label the feeling. I'm sensing pressure, or this is frustration.
Just giving it a name.
And affect labeling research confirms that just naming the emotion instead of trying to stuff it down, it reduces its charge in the limbic system by up to 50%. You take away its power.
You stop being the feeling and you start observing it.
Which leads directly into step 4, separate yourself from it. Another 10 seconds. This is a metacognitive step. You reaffirm, I am aware of frustration. I am not frustration.
So you're rewiring your brain.
You're rewiring from identification. I am panicked to the identity of a grounded observer. I am observing panic. You're a leader who has a feeling, not a feeling that's looking for a decision to make.
And finally, the pivot back to clarity.
Step 5, unlock perspective. The last 10 seconds, you asked yourself one single clarifying question. What is the next intelligent action?
And the word choice there is key. Not the fastest action.
Not the fastest, not the most urgent, but the intelligent action. This query forces your brain to shift processing back to the now calmer prefrontal cortex. It prioritizes clarity and precision over panic and speed.
For the executives who practice this under fire, what's the long-term benefit of making this a ritual?
The benefits are systemic. I mean, they start providing clearer, slower, better direction. They stop causing that accidental emotional damage to their teams, which stabilizes the whole culture. And crucially, they avoid the mental exhaustion that leads to burnout. They can be that stabilizing force for weeks, not just for one incident.
Let's see this protocol in action again. Tell us about the director of engineering at the fintech company. What was his life like before containment?
Well, before the protocol, he was a classic reactive firefighter. The moment a critical alert came in, he reacted instantly, jumping into Slack, flooding the channel with micromanagement, firing off short, demanding questions.
Like, why is this happening? Or what's the status now?
Exactly. His team's view of him was technically brilliant, emotionally unpredictable.
And that kind of unpredictability is just exhausting for an engineering team.
It's corrosive to trust. So we worked with him to install the 45-second protocol. We really emphasized the tongue relaxation and that separation step.
And the change?
It was almost immediate. Within 1 week, his Slack tone shifted from these frantic demands to measured, grounded requests for information. He stopped trying to solve every problem instantly himself and started asking more precise, open-ended questions that actually empowered his engineers.
Did that change the incident process itself?
Fundamentally, his own internal stress dropped because he wasn't operating purely in survival mode anymore. And because of that, his team stopped making those avoidable secondary mistakes that are rooted in panic. He delegated better, his triage decisions were better because they weren't rushed.
What about the team culture? What was the ultimate impact?
You know, the most powerful metric we got wasn't a reduction in bugs or anything, it was a change in human perception. The most impactful piece of feedback came from one of his senior engineers, who said, "This is the first time I've ever seen him calm."
Wow.
And that single quote, it just demonstrates the power of this. It fundamentally rebuilds trust and shifts the leader's identity from, volatile genius to stable authority.
Okay, so as we start to wrap this framework up, let's review the 3 critical emotional states from the coaching diagrams that every manager has to understand and control.
Yeah, this really helps managers identify where they are in any given moment. First is the pressure state. This is the starting point. You feel overloaded, your body tightens up, you feel that urge to rush everything.
And if you don't contain that pressure, it spirals into state number 2.
The reactive state. This is where you're speaking before you think, you're escalating situations without meaning to, and you're making those high beta, low quality decisions. This is where leaders do the most damage.
And the goal, the third state.
The third state, the ultimate goal, is the contained state. Here, you sense the pressure, you feel the urgency, but you stay deliberately grounded. You remain slow and clear in your communication, and you lead the moment instead of being driven by the feeling.
So the goal isn't to be some kind of stoic machine with no feelings. It's to use the feeling as information, but without letting it take control.
That's the key distinction. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to stay contained. When a crisis is raging, that contained state, that projected stability, that is the true definition of high-stakes leadership.
So if we take the central truth from all this high-level training, it's really this. The pressure is not the problem you need to solve. Your reaction to the pressure is the problem.
And if you implement just one thing from this deep dive, commit to stability. Your team doesn't need a manager who is technically perfect in every single moment. They need a manager who is emotionally stable. Perfect systems will always fail. Stable leaders endure.
So the challenge for you now is to internalize that 25-second pause. Start practicing that protocol the next time you feel even the slightest rush of anxiety.
No more leaking stress, no more rushing decisions, no more accidentally sending that emotional contagion through your teams. Commit to containing your state, lead with absolute clarity, and become the calm, stabilizing force in the heart of the chaos.